Hello, this is Will Harold, the Energy Hunter, coming to you from Akashic Intelligence, the original AI in the wild and woolly Rogue River in Southern Oregon, with the Secret of Light group, Walter Russell, the wave, and all things that can transmute our detrimental energies into beneficial energies so we can go forth and show light onto the world. Today, we are going to do number 2 in our series called the Transmutation series. The first one was on the Mandela effect, and we covered some aspects of it's not so much, is it real or is it not, but what is it trying to teach us in the aspect of being able to see a change in matter and bring that discussion to our current consciousness. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about a topic that is running through our current alphabetic community and through other communities, which is the idea is Shivambu. And we're going to get into what Shivambu is and what that means and how it's used. But we're also going to talk a bit about scarcity mentality. We're going to talk a bit about the current idea of the reset. And we're going to look at a little bit of some dystopian ideas that were put forth by George Orwell in the book 1984. And then we're going to correlate that all back to Russell, the wave, and some of his concepts within the universal octave. And then we're going to close out with takeaways and a prayer and intent for the violet flame. So with that being said, let's get started. So as we look at this collage, which I usually do when we for the cover thumbnail of all of them,
what's his face out of there? Jesus,
Doug. So the reason that we put things like this up because it triggers people. When it triggers people, that usually means that they have something they need to work on. So that is why we show these images, because within Shivambu, these are the god and goddess Shiva. And then we have the tarot card for the Five of Pentacles, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means. We also are showing kind of an ancient illustration of the alchemist. We're showing a diagram here from Walter Russell, which is the mind centers and controls motion from within. Seek ye the kingdom of heaven within. So within his diagrams, Walter Russell is putting forth this idea of seek ye the kingdom of heaven within. We have our favorite guy here, Mr. Schwab. We also have an idea from, I said, the Orwell book, the 2 Minutes Hate. We're going to discuss that a bit. And we actually have a picture of a bottle of urine here that is really what Shivambu is, which is urine therapy. We have a picture of from web in the web on MD and so on about what's currently going on with the process of urine within pharmaceuticals. And then there's a picture here of how money and scarcity mentality and so on is used to control the masses. So we're going to talk a little bit about all those things and kind of try to tie them together into a kind of an idea of a what if scenario. And what if we could relieve scarcity mentality? What if we could relieve the idea of fear by most people that are constantly in fear of what is going to happen tomorrow, and how are they going to meet their needs, and what are their needs actually, and what do they fear within those needs? So the first thing that we're going to talk a little bit about here is scarcity mindset and the Great Reset. So a scarcity mindset is when you are so obsessed with the lack of something, usually time or money, that you can't seem to focus on anything else, no matter how hard you try. So right now, we're being forced sometimes into scarcity mentality. There's not going to be enough food. The finance system's going to collapse. They're taking all of our land. And really what that does is that puts us as humans in a mindset that we no longer can create. We're so focused on the fear of what we don't want to happen, that we can no longer concentrate on what we want to happen. It's almost as if we have these circles that we live in, and one's a scarcity circle and one's an abundance and creativity circle. And we want to jump into this, and we can't be in both circles at the same time. So once we jump into the scarcity circle, we can no longer create. We are shut off from source, we are shut off from creation, and we are now in a victim circle. And once we become in that victim circle, we need to actually get out of that and begin to understand that we need to get back into the creation, or what we also call the transmutation circle. Because the only difference really between a creation and transmutation is the creation is kind of a new form, to where transmutation would be taking an existing form that is detrimental and transmuting it into a beneficial form. So from creation and transmutation, the only difference is you're taking something that's already been created and changing its vibration, its resonance from one that may be detrimental, and changing that, combining the waves as we talked about in some of the previous videos with Ibrahim Karim and the idea of quality and so on, of changing those waveforms or adding those waveforms to detrimental waveforms to change the overall waveform into a beneficial force. So within the Great Reset is a global agenda spearheaded by the World Economic Forum that can be summed up in one sentence: you will own nothing and be happy. So again, this was put forth by Mr. Schwab here. And, you know, there's a couple of things I really want to talk about that statement. For one, some people say that it really wasn't said, and, you know, that that's not what they mean and so on. But when we see this image within the book 1984, there was the concept put forth that there was an image of this guy right here. This is from the movie 1984, by the way. This is a cut from the movie. And in that movie, they threw up this image of this guy that everybody hated. So the people of Oceania hated this guy. He was the cause of all of their problems. And they'd throw this image up on the screen, and everybody would rail against the image for 2 minutes, and it was called the 2 minutes hate. And when they did that, you know, they were actually taking all of their energy, right? All this energy that they could be using for creation, and actually giving that power over to that image. And they were actually empowering that image with waveforms, right? We're talking about how we do this, how we give away our power. So every time we see this image and we throw a 2 minute hate on it, we have now just surrendered our power and given it away. It benefits us nothing. It actually benefits the other side, or the hate side. I mean, it is not benefiting the purpose of the light at all. And so therefore, when we see this image, we have to put forth a different waveform, right? We have to put form of a waveform of compassion or understanding or pity or whatever, but we need to put forth, but to transform the idea of that image that's being put forth before us. And again, this is just kind of the idea of this, you know, Orwell put it out there, that it's not beneficial. It's a type of mind control, actually. That's what it's being used for. And once we fall into the trap of that, of saying, oh, I hate that image, oh, look at that, whatever, we have now fallen into the trap of mind control. We're doing exactly what it is they want us to do. And so we can, if we decide that we don't want to do that, that we want to transmute that mind control into a more beneficial energy wave, you know, that's where each individual has to decide how they are going to transmute that mind control into a beneficial, positive force going forward, and not be triggered by those images that are purely put there. The statements are put there, the images are put there, all that is put there as a mind control or as an occult magic. I mean, it's basically they're casting a spell, they're showing word magic and so on. So don't fall for the trap, right? And, you know, I'd also kind of want to say is ownership, because, you know, compared to stewardship, do we really own anything in reality? I mean, you will own nothing to be happy. Is that really a true statement? Well, the Bible says, naked we come and naked we will leave this earth. We will take nothing with us and we come with nothing. The only thing we have is ourselves and our consciousness. And hopefully when we will leave better people. We will leave people that have gained and grown, and that we will evolve, right? That when we will leave with more within a conscious idea, right? That we will grow with experience, with knowledge and so on, so that when our next incarnation, we may come back better off in terms of how we can deal with this 3D reality. And we don't devolve, because we can also devolve at the next incarnation, right? So do we really own anything? I say we don't. I mean, we think we do, right? Again, that's kind of a psyop. That's kind of a falsification so that they can get us to borrow money, right? To purchase things that we don't own. But within the Bible and within there's the idea of stewardship. And the idea of stewardship is that we do manage things. So we do have homes that are built, and we are stewards of those properties. We're stewards of the earth. We're stewards of all things that are manifest, of our children, of our friends. The idea is that once something's put in our care, we don't own it, but we are stewards of it. And right now, we're stewards of the earth. Are we really fulfilling that obligation as stewards of the earth? Are we stewards of the cosmos? Are we stewards of our own body, right? Do we value our bodies? Are we stewards? Or are we owners? And we just, are kind of, bad renters that just tear it up, and when it's gone, it's gone. The idea, though, is that our bodies, are what allow us to connect and to transmute. And if we don't become good stewards of our bodies, then our ability to transmute will be diminished. When I talk about our bodies, I'm talking about our bodies, our minds, just as with this idea of this 2-minute hate. This is really affecting our emotion, our etheric bodies, our mental bodies, and so on and so forth. We're being brainwashed to put pollution in, right? To put poison in, and we spit poison out. And we have no transmutation at all going on. We're actually, if anything, enhancing the poison, right? By multiplying that, by creating greater force behind it, rather than looking at it and seeing it for what it is. And, it's almost like we take that shadow side and we transmute it. We don't get rid of it, but we understand it. And we, bring it into ourselves so that we don't have to put out the same poison, and we let our bodies transmute the negative detrimental effects of that into a more positive effect as we send it out. So, I would like you guys to really think about, do we own anything, and really kind of contemplate the idea of stewardship over ownership. And then, any questions on those concepts I just put out there before we move on?
Yeah. The stewardship that you're referring to is definitely not the Schwab version of not owning things.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's not and the idea, but again, the question is there truly any ownership anyway? That's the question, right? And should we even be considering ownership, or should we be considering stewardship?
Right.
And you even said it earlier too, creatorship.
Mm-hmm.
If we're constantly creating, then owning doesn't really make sense anyways.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then we could transmute the quote here to you own nothing yet have everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's
There's
really
also a fight with you own nothing, but you pay taxes to the government. So there's ways now you can fix that.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's your land,
Mm-hmm.
which is more of the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You then own it now. So I mean, that's because you got the land grant instead of the title.
Mm-hmm. But do you really own it? I mean, is this something that you like? I know that there was a fellow here who was getting, the surveyor out to his property to do a land grant. Again, I'm not saying don't do land grants or don't do those kind of land patents or any of those kind of things. That's not what I'm saying. But he did have a surveyor out to his property to do the land patent. The surveyor's like, well, what are you talking about? I mean, you know, you own it. Well, what'd you do? Steal it from the Indians? You mean own it before you? And the new they still, you know, I mean, you know, where does the ownership start and where does it end, right? And is that really, you know, the concept that we should be moving forward with in this new economy, this new world, but actually create better mindset and create better talents to be better stewards, right? To actually understand what stewardship is and develop those qualities that allow us to be better stewards, right? As we concentrate on that, rather than it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. Okay, it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. But are you going to take care of it? You know, or is it just going to, you know, be thrown away in the gutter in a few years because you did nothing to take care of what you were given because you had no gratitude for what you were given, right? So, you know, so let's look a little bit at what people fear, you know, what are the items most people fear lacking? And, you know, because this is really where the scarcity mindset comes from. I mean, people have needs, right? They do have needs. And what are those needs? Well, you know, in the Bible, there's, you know, food and clothing. You know, Jesus said on the Sermon on the Mount, you know, why do you fear what you should eat and what you should wear? Don't the lilies of the fields, aren't they adorned, and so on, right? And the birds, how are they fed? And again, that's kind of being very, you know, you say, well, he can say that, but there is starvation in the world, right? I don't see it right now, and I know that most people, and again, I'm just saying from what I don't want to discount any of those who are starving or anything, but from what I hear, we have an obesity problem in the world today, right? Most people eat far too much, and we are eating the wrong things, putting the wrong things in our temple, and eating far too much. I know for myself that I've kind of become more aware of what I eat and found that I don't need nearly as much as I thought I needed to eat. I can cut my food intake way back, and I'm a big guy. I'm 220 pounds, but I can cut my food intake way back from what I thought it was. And
Also,
even
the hours thing, you know, how you're supposed to keep it in 6 hours of the day.
Yes, and it's much more healthy and so on. You know, and I think Bear says that, you know, we can get 85% of our nutrients from the air, you know, and that's what breatharians do. Now, I don't want to be a breatharian. I don't want to go down to 125 pounds. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I want.
No,
but I do believe that maybe we would change the way that we eat like the Jewish people did in the Bible at festivals, and we actually eat as a breaking of bread together and of a join together. And, you know, in between times we may be fasting or breatharian, or actually like what they would call looping Shivambu. There's different ways in which we can get nutrients, and once we actually got out of just that one scarcity mentality, right? Because how do you scare a city? Scarcity, right? That's the way that you scare the whole city. And once you scare,
it becomes so amazing when you don't eat often.
Exactly. And the food that we're getting is so horrible anyway that it's just more poison being taken in. So, you know, we could just solve the one idea of, you know, how much food do we need? What's the intake look like? And how could we supplement that through, you know, water, air, and maybe Shivambu? If we could just take care of that number one item, you know, we may be able to stop a lot of the scarcity mentality that's out there. Same thing with clothing. You know, how much clothing do we need? You know, I can remember, it's funny because, you know, I'm an architect, and it used to be that most people could, with a family of 4, could live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house very easily, right? And now it takes 4-bedroom, 3 baths. The idea of, you know, what's the biggest thing that people would say about when I was doing like what they call production housing, which is tract housing, is where's the closet? Where's the master bedroom closet? It had to be as big as a bedroom, right? Because they store all the clothes that we have. We now have, 12 pair of tennis shoes, where before we had one pair of shoes, maybe a pair to go to church in and a pair to work in. Now we have. So, the idea that we're in today in a lot of this, excess is best, right? Rather than is that it's easy to get scarcity when now I only have 11 pair of shoes versus 12, not really seeing, what my needs are. And it doesn't mean that, if you want 12 pairs of shoes, you can't have them, but is that, what's the mentality you're in? What kind of consciousness is that putting you in when you think that when you don't have that, you need that, and that's the only thing I'm saying. I'm not saying that being rich or having things is poor or sinful. I mean, bad or sinful. But at what point do we actually begin to determine what our needs are? And, how can we live within those means? Because the time is coming where our earth, our Mother Earth that we're a steward of, can no longer support our opulent needs. All we're doing is throwing things into the landfills, every few years when our tennis shoes or our shoes run out, because we're making shoes that don't last. We're mining for products, we're creating plastics, which come from oils, so at what point do we begin to say, we don't need these things. I don't really want to own, I won't know if I won't own anything, but I will own far less because I don't need as much as I have. And what does that look like as we move forward? I mean, what is it that I need? Because I know that when I moved here, up to Oregon, I bought an acre to start with, and I'm like, oh man, that's not enough. I'm going to need more to grow food. Well, I find out that, for me to sustain a single person, you can do it in the backyard of a, small home, really. I mean, you can do sprouting, you can do vertical gardening. There's many ways that we can actually support our health and growing if we want to grow. Like I said, sprouting, you can do it on your kitchen counter. You can grow sprouts. Is it, the feast of feasts? No, but it's probably healthier than anything else you can eat, and it's very cheap to eat that way. So we have food, we have clothing, we have shelter, and like what's the shelter? What is our shelter? I mean, how much shelter do we need? Do we need the 4-bedroom, 3-bath house? Do we need the 2-bedroom, 1-bath house? Do we need the 1-bedroom, 1-bath house? What does that look like as we move forward to get us out of this scarcity mentality, right? Of that we're not going to have these things. The next thing's medicine. It's funny, as I was doing this discussion layout here, I was looking up, okay, so in Venezuela, when they had the collapse, what were the number one things that people were looking for? Number one was powdered milk, right? Not even healthy. I mean, maybe if you had babies, I guess that would be good. But number two was sugar. What sugar causes the reason for number three, which is medicine, right? Because as you're eating all this refined sugar, and then number three was drugs like Pepto-Bismol and aspirin and things like that. So these things that everybody, wanted were actually the things that are killing them at the same time. And they haven't gotten past the idea of the scarcity or of the body as a temple and what the body really needs. They are not, as Walter Russell said, they are unaware, or as Jung said, they are unconscious, right? They have not reached the consciousness of what their needs are and how they can fulfill those needs in the most efficient way, which then would cause a scarcity mentality, right? And it will come. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're in a city and the supply chains break down in the way that you're used to living, if you have not put in some type of alternate plan for how you're going to survive when that breaks down, like I said, whether or not you go to sprouting or some other methods, then you will have a scarcity mentality and you will be searching for food and other things. But even with that, even with searching for food, how long can you live without food? We're going to talk about that a bit, right? And then you have protection like personal and family and community, and what does that look like, right? So as we look at all this scarcity, the next question is the universe abundant? I think Vortex writer talked about a little bit about that, about abundance and the idea of abundance. So within the concepts of transmutation is that we are star beings. We are all made from the same things as the stars, as the cosmos, that all these elements, as Walter Russell talks about, are just the same. They're made from light, right? They're made from lights, and they are different phases within the octave. Is it possible for us in this abundant universe, which is full of light, right, to transmute these elements into whatever we wish? Because if we follow Walter Russell, right, that we are divine creator beings, is there a way that we can transmute light and the elements into the things that we need? And I think that, as I say, you know, this idea that we may be able to do that, because if you look at what we call the in the tarot, they have the card called the Five of Pentacles. And the Five of Pentacles is a card that the pentacles represent the earth and the wands represent fire. So the four elements, fire, water, earth, and air, are all represented within the tarot. So the pentacles actually pertain to the earth, and kind of, so the Five of Pentacles represents poverty, sickness, disease, loss, lack of resource, and love. And the picture on the Five of Pentacles is kind of these two people out in the snow in rags, maybe disabled, or, you know, have infirmities, and they're walking in the snow and they just feel left out in the cold. But behind them is this church window, right, that's lit up. What's going on in that church where they can afford the light? I'm sure there must be warmth in there. There may be abundance in there, but they're walking past it because their heads are not looking to another means, right? They're not looking to what may be their solution. They're just concentrated back to this poverty mindset. They're concentrated on, you know, they are focused, so obsessed with the lack of something that you can't seem to focus on anything else. So can we change our mindset, our focus from poverty or scarcity to abundance? And if we did, what could we transmute in our world? So let's look a little bit about the words transmutation. So transmutation is a noun. I mean, I would have said it was a verb, right? But it's a noun. It's the act of transmutation, might be a verb, but transmutation of, from something to into something, an act of changing or being changed into something different. So that's transmutation. So we're taking something, from something to something. So something's already been created. We're taking that something and changing it into something different. And so, you know, the example they give, the alchemist's aim was the transmutation of base metals into gold. Well, that was one of his aims. And that's kind of the idea that they put forth to kind of minimize the idea of the alchemist. But the alchemist's goal of transmutation was to actually take that which was not beneficial and transmuting it into something that was beneficial. And the highest element was the idea of gold, because gold was at that time, and even within biogeometry, we talked about the BG3, which one of the aspects of the BG3 is the higher harmonic of gold. And that's when you look at some of these Byzantine paintings of saints and so on, they always have the gold halo around their head. And we would look at maybe ascended beings, even with like Buddha and so on, they would have gold around their heads. And even within the Hindu traditions and so on, there's usually gold in some form around that, because that's always seen as the highest level of ascension, in a sense, the gold standard, whatever you know, however you'd like to say it. So gold is always looked at as kind of being the highest element of transmutation. And even when we discussed Russell, you know, the yellow or the gold was the middle sound, right? It was the centering sound. It was the center where things all came from. It was the centering of the soul, right? Within the keyboard. It's really, here's a picture of the alchemist trying to transmute these into this golden area. And it's also the color of urine, a golden hue. Right? There's a reason that our urine isn't some other color. It's not green or red or black or some other thing. It's gold. Why is that, right?
That's wild.
Right? Because the mind centers and controls motion from within. Seek ye the kingdom of heaven within. What's that really saying to us? Does it just mean that we go meditation in? Or does it mean that we actually have other factors within that if we seek, we may find more answers? So alchemy in itself is a noun, and it's a form of chemistry studied in the Middle Ages, which I would say it's been studied long before the Middle Ages. It's been studied for millennia. I mean, it was studied for sure by the Egyptians, which were far from the Middle Ages, by the history that we have. And that's a whole nother issue that we can talk about do we have resets in history, and is the history that we know true? But so I wouldn't say it was really from the Middle Ages. That involved trying to discover how to change ordinary metals into gold. Again, that's one aspect. It's not the main aspect, but again, the highest aspect of alchemy was to get something to become gold, was to get something to become the highest resonance it could be and the most beneficial. So the goal of the alchemist is to take base metals, base feelings, base whatever, right? Base consciousness, and elevate that to its highest potential and best and highest use. And how does the alchemist do that? Through transmutation. Not creation, but transmutation, right? He's taking something and changing it into something else. And that's why we now are concentrating on transmutation in this series, rather than just creation. So now we're kind of going to get to Shivambu, but I've kind of led into that within our bodies, we have the ability to create gold. We take in food, we take in water, we take in minerals, and we put forth gold from our bodies. A form of gold, maybe not the gold that we thought, maybe not the gold that we want, but there is a gold that comes forth from our bodies, correct? And so before I get into Shivambu, any questions or comments on what we've talked about so far?
Well, I was thinking, well, you said alchemy. What about like those painters when they were painting, I mean, using the colors or what they mixed or the way, obviously the way it was positioned. I mean, it would create this feeling or golden mean, or again, it's got the gold word in there. Yeah. I hope we're going to have more of those people. Alchemy, but
we are those people.
Yeah, I know, but we got to manifest it.
So basically what we're talking about here is we're taking all the base elements out of the earth in the forms that becomes food, and we transmute the food into gold. That
is my premise.
That's the premise.
Okay.
That's my premise. I'm not saying that it's true or not. That is my premise.
That's
what do you do with the gold after that?
Well, we can do many things with the gold after that. We're going to get into that next.
There's a lot to learn here.
Well, I know that in homeopathy, when somebody is, well, I'll say out of balance, whatever, something major is happening, my homeopath would give gold in a certain form, certain potency. What an impact, let me put it this way.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
So they have to know when it's time to give it, or if it's needed in the constitution, again, same idea, that's one of the hey, must be the golden medal, whatever, like it's golden. So
Mhm.
so I've seen it in action, okay, and wow, it's
Yeah, and with that, I mean, I have a spirit here that I got from Robert Bartlett when I was up in Washington taking his course, which is a gold, spirit. The idea, though, is that with spirit you almost have to have somebody who knows, as you said, when to administer it. And that intelligence, you have to find the right person, because you get the wrong person, then they, especially with spirit metal spirit, you can get poisoned very quickly. Because if you don't have it the right dose, the right time, and by the right person so there's a lot of intelligence that has to come from without you, unless you know it yourself, to actually know when to take that spirit when to take that certain medicine or form. So we're going to talk a little bit about why urine, you don't have to do that. Any more questions before we go on into Shivambu?
you kind of given us a clue here. It's like, okay, I would go see my homeopath, and based on what was happening, either they test using acupuncture or whatever. While I'm lying down and having acupuncture done, she would prepare exactly the combination that I would need to take now for the next little while, using homeopathy or tissue salt, or so again, imagine if your body is doing that. Sorry, I'm just like, wow, mind blown here.
You're stealing my thunder here, but yes,
I'm mind blowing it. Like, I'm just like, whoa. Anyway,
it's like everything is a lie. It's simple. Just everything you know is a lie. I've been saying this forever anyways. It's like, so yeah.
Well,
okay.
We got everything within ourselves. The kingdom is within. We don't need anything else.
Oh, good. I'm glad it's coming. We're all yes. So,
Yeah.
So Shivambu in Damartantra. So God has given a wonderful gift to man in his own Shivambu, right? Shiva means beneficial, salubrious, and ambu means water. The combined Sanskrit word Shivambu, beneficial water, has been formed from these two words. Auto urine or self-urine therapy is found in Damartantra, is an ancient Sanskrit work. It contains a detailed description of the system of therapeutics utilization of Shivambu, i.e. auto urine therapy, as expounded by Lord Shiva to his divine consort, the goddess Parvati. There are 107 shlokas or verses in the meter called Anshuptup Shandas. I'm sorry if I'm butchering this, but I don't know Hindu or Hindi. It is asserted in the Damartantra that all diseases can be cured by Shivambu, one's own urine, and all mankind can retain health and strength through the regular use of Shivambu. So this, we're talking Sanskrit, is one of the very earliest forms of writing we know. It's very ancient. I mean, we're talking, before the Bible, before, Muhammad, before Greeks, before Egyptians, maybe even, right? Probably before Egyptians even, the Devas and so on. Even within Gigi Young's work, I believe she said that the Atlanteans and so on went to India first, right after the fall of Atlantis. So the idea that this is very ancient, it's been around forever, that we could use our own urine and also within a spiritual practice to not only gain physical health, but to gain spiritual acuity and connection, because of this water that our own bodies are transmuting. As you guys have all said, this is where I'm going, right? This technology of our body as the ultimate transmutation device, as the temple. Yes, Doug.
What does that mean? The 107 shlokas or verses?
It's just it's like a poem, right? Like, they used to write everything in some type of poem, right? And so that would be saying that there's 107 verses. Within Ayurvedic, they would be called, shlokas. All right, that's kind of another name for verse, but in a different tongue. All right, different. So so what are these benefits of urine therapy that are supposed? Right, we can prevent from bacterial infection. We can cure fungal infection on skin. We can prevent from viral infection, prevent allergies, cure the symptoms of autoimmune disease, prevent hair loss, cure acne and other skin problems, fight cancer, cleanse the blood circulation, promotes healthy heart, relieve sting and burning wound, keep young skin, relieve constipation and calming nerves. And, Amanda Vollmer, I think, who I shared a video with, and there are some, Amanda Vollmer talks a lot on YouTube, and she is a homeopath and has quite extensive knowledge on this. There's also Dr. Shivambu and different people who speak within the alphabetic community that have, cured themselves, they say, of cancers, of testicular cancers and other things, and I believe them. I have listened to them and talked to them, and they tell me their stories. But the idea of, like, say, with relieving stinging and burning wound, Amanda tells a story of her daughter who gets stung by a bee, and she drags her off in the bushes. This is what you have Amanda as a mother. She drags you off in the bushes. She tells you, "Pee in my hand, honey," because the child's just screaming. And so the child pees in her hand. She puts that directly on the wound, and the child stops screaming immediately, because your body has taken in that sting wound and transmuted the the antidote for what you need to cure that venom.
Well, is it that because it's whatchamacallit? That works for everything. What is that called? Stem cells.
Yes, correct. And there are stem cells in your urine also. But your body is actually like communicating, right? This is communicating, saying that, it's not making anti-snake venom for you. It's not, that would be if you got bit by a snake. It's making this for this specific type of insect, right? There's a yellow jacket or whatever it was that bit you. If it was a spider, it may be a different, reaction, and so on and so forth. If it was a chemtrail that's fallen on you, it may be a different, right? Antidote.
It's changing what it's giving you. I mean, has anyone? That's amazing.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And so that's what I'm saying. So if these are true, imagine how this could offset scarcity mentality, right? That our bodies are able to transmute those factors that we fear so much, that we've been given this the whole time, that our bodies are able, as the alchemist has searched for in all his learning and practice, and all this was already before us all the time, within our own fountain of youth, right? Within our own living waters, as Christ talked about, right? Within. What an amazing thing that could be happening, right? It would change our world. But who wants to drink their urine? That's a tough one because of the overlays we've had put on us. I mean, we'll drink alcohol, right? Which tastes horrible. The first time I drank coffee, it tasted horrible. We'll put all kinds of crap in our bodies, right? But we won't drink our own urine. Why? Because the overlay has been put on us for so long. Is it really the taste? Is it really the smell? Right? There's things that smell far worse and taste far worse.
It's the mind.
Right? It's like this conditioning that we have, right? So, as we look at this, if, again, here's the things that it talks about. So what's in the properties of urine, right? Yeah, as Doug said, there's stem cells, there's DHEA, there's growth hormone, there's testosterone for men, there's estrogen for women, there's cell salts. Amanda Vollmer says that you can cure scurvy by drinking your own urine. So all these sailors that had to, all these limeys that had to take the limes and lemons with them on sea voyages. It's probably why the Vikings ever talked of it. They probably did it, right? Probably why they were so big and everything. And also, any man, and I guess a woman too, I've never, watched a woman urinate, but any man that urinates can see that it comes out within a vortex. It's structured water that comes out. So that water that's coming out is already structured. So it's already like pure source water. So the water that's in your urine is structured already, and it has all these elements. It is ambrosia. It is the nectar of life, right?
Well, that your arteries, your veins have a like gelled form of blood in there, creating the vortex pattern.
Correct.
It was Cowan said that.
Yes, exactly. And if you watch Cowan and Amanda's, on this, I mean, Dr. Cowan's so funny.
Yeah, right.
He goes, I really don't want to have this interview with you, Amanda, because it's the kind of thing that I know once I listen to you, I'm going to have to do it, And so, yeah, it's kind of funny, right? But it's funny that this liquid that we have, and that's why I wanted to make this part of our transmutation series, because if our bodies can transmute all these things and that inherent intelligence is in there, what a boon for mankind, right? It would get rid of so many things. Could you imagine wiping out the entire pharmaceutical industry just by drinking your own? Just by drinking your own urine, and having a better, and actually not only wiping out not only just like curing disease, but promoting health, right? That
major prerequisite for this definitely is believing that our bodies are perfect and do transmute and do create good. And I think one thing I've seen in the contrast during this particular time in the past few years is that lots of people believe that their bodies are toxic. And it would be, you would have to get over that first before you would ever be able to see the benefit of this.
Yes. And then there will be those that won't. And that's just the harsh reality of the whole scenario. And this will be, I believe, a bifurcation, not only in this, but in many aspects of our life, of, as we descend or ascend. These are those forks in the road that we all have, that if we go down that path, we don't want our bodies anyway, right? They're evil, they're sinful, they're dirty, whatever. We want to get rid of them and move on,
But wow, when we're drinking our urine, what are we asserting about what we believe about ourselves at that point? I think that's amazing.
It is amazing. And so, but again, as we, so we say, is it real? Is it true? I mean, is this just a bunch of, Damartantra, followers and weird guys that drink their urine, and crazy uncles, and so on and so forth that are doing this,
What's stories of people getting well from terrible disease doing this?
Well, I mean, so within, this medicine, publication here, urine-derived stem cells application in regenerative and predictive medicine. This is a abstract that's put out in medical journals, and look at the date on it, February 2020. What was happening in February 2020? That's when this came out, right? And what it talks about is, despite being a biological waste, despite being a
biological waste, though.
Exactly. So they call, it's like saying, you're stupid, but you're a genius. It's like,
they made sure they added that those words right at the beginning.
Well, it's right.
So you're already conditioned. I don't want to read further.
Right.
Yes. Game.
So it says, so besides that, human urine contains a small. Now this is a medical journal. Okay, this is not, contains a small population of cells with self-renewal capacity. So not only are we talking about, being relieved of disease, but actually growing, right? I mean, actually, like if you have a diseased liver, not just stopping disease, but creating a new liver, creating a new eye, creating new, new cells in your body, right? Regenerative. That's huge, right? There's nothing out there that does this. I mean, there's nothing out there besides your own stem cells. Even when you have like, shoulder surgery and you have to have, your shoulder redone, they're going to take stem cells either from your hip or somewhere out of your body, or from a fetus, or some other place, right? To That's the only way that you're going to grow new tissue is through human stem cells, right? So we know that our urine has that, and that the longer you age it, the more stem cells and the more vibrant those stem cells become. So again, within this diagram here, we're showing, that there's the body. You can have these urine-derived cells and cultures, and they're showing, change. I mean, what do they want to do? They want to go change the genome and all kinds of stuff. We don't need to do any of that. Our body already has known what we need.
This is modeling.
Yeah, and we can just do that, right? But what I'm trying to show here is that this is not just woo. This is not just some practice that's out there by, some sect of religious nuts or something, right? This is science.
Wait
And
a
now
minute,
it's,
do this with your urine? You want to make a drug they can sell?
yeah, they do it now. That's really what plasma is. I mean, they go around and collect the urine from all the porta potties and sell it and create pharmaceuticals out of it now. They're doing this now. They put it in cosmetics. They put it in all kinds of things.
I didn't know human. I thought uric acid from like cows or pigs or something.
No, they pick all this stuff up and they actually make medicines and different products out of it now.
And charge us to give it to them.
Yeah, exactly.
What a racket.
So, and again, I'm showing this because it is what's going on now. And it's kind of, proving and putting forth the claims that are being made by people that within the medical community. And again, I'm not a doctor. Okay. I'm not trying to say I can cure anything or that I'm just putting forth the information myself that I've researched and found. But the one thing that kind of struck me as I was doing all this was, where do you smell like urine the most, right? And I kind of put it here in plain sight, right? In convalescent hospitals, right? Have you ever walked into a convalescent hospital and all you smell is urine, and how that turns you off? And you're thinking to myself, my God, if these people were just drinking this instead of, spilling it on their bedclothes, they wouldn't even be in here. Is that like kind of, in plain sight, right?
Ironic.
Your body's trying, the universe is trying to tell us, this is the answer.
Mm.
But we can't accept it, right? Just a thought, I was kind of contemplating as I thought about it.
Some of us can accept it.
So this is actually what got me into it. Was that this is actually my face right here, and I had a lesion next to my ear. That was where I used to put my cell phone before I found out about radiation. And this lesion that I had since I was in Santa Clara. It's been about 9 months since, and it wasn't going away. And then I was researching images of skin cancer, and that looked very similar to what I had going on my face. And I know, Brian, you're saying you don't see it, but if this was the same clarity as this, you would see this same kind of raised area, which is over here, and this kind of open sore area here that
Similar
just
enough.
yeah, that just wasn't healing, And I tried MMS, I tried DMSO, I tried all kinds of things, iodine, and it wasn't going away. So I was listening to Amanda or something, right? And I said, well, I'll try this. 3 days later, it had healed up.
On the outside, you put the.
Yeah, just put it on the outside, right? But in 3 days, it had healed up, right? Like this. That had taken 9 months and hadn't done anything. And then within 10 days, because this also was like, a squamous cell type thing where it was raised and different things. And so then I started putting DMSO also, and then that began to flake away, and now it's almost totally gone, So again, I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice for treatment or a cure for skin cancer or any other disease. This is a chronological example of my own experience. So this is really what got me, because 4 or 5 years ago, I would have had this on my face and I would have ran to the doctor. And I would have been on that, train to who knows what, right? but now I'm fine. And it just took a little urine. And people said, what about, like black seed oil or something, or, Rick Simpson oil or something like that. Well, I checked out those things a few years ago when I had a family member that had cancer, and they were kind of expensive and kind of iffy. And, I'm always going to try the least expensive option first. And that's urine, right? Free. So I tried it and it worked. There may have been other options I would have tried had it not worked, but for me, I tried that first and it worked, right? Went away. So, as we talk about this, we've covered these things about what is our bodies capable of this major transmutation, right? Can we, are our bodies intelligent enough, and so on. And then it kind of gets back to, as we have this scarcity mentality and so on, why are we doing all this? Why do we care, right? Why are we trying to do all this, right? What is the reason for us for being, right? As we had talked about, I think it was last week or in the series on the Mandela effect, that humans are the only being that we know of that can actually have self-introspection, right? And so Walter Russell believed that all men seek to know God and to commune with him more intimately. That's what Walter Russell's saying. The reason that we're here is that we're, and even at that time when we read that in the books, it's probably about, a year ago, so it was very early. I said, is that true? Do all men really seek God? And my answer is no. I don't believe all men do. There's some that do, right? But I don't think it's the vast majority. I think some may wonder, why they're here, but within the scientific materialist view, they're not seeking God because they don't even believe in a God, right? Maybe they've gone past that, right? It might have been an idea early in their life or sometime, or they may have never had that idea. Rick Warren, who was a pastor down in Southern California, wrote a best-selling book regarding the purpose-driven life. So within his ideas that, we have a purpose, and we have to find that purpose, but that's not really what Walter's saying. He's just saying we need to know God. Maybe God will show us the purpose, but that's not really why we're here, is to actually have this purpose, just to know God. Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. So these are really attributes and qualities that Jesus is saying. Again, there's no purpose here, right? That's not that there's a purpose, it's that the purpose is love. That is the purpose, right? And maybe through love, we will find the right actions, but there's no true purpose behind it. The purpose is love. The result is an action. And then Buddha said, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If one speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows one, like a shadow that never leaves. So this is getting back to what we're talking about with Walter Russell, that we are creators, that all we see we have created, that we take responsibility for what and that which we have created, because we are divine creator beings. And with that being said, is our body also a creator? Is it the most technically advanced transmutation device that we've ever seen? That it can take the elements that we put into it and transmute out a liquid that will sustain us. Because we can live on urine for many days. Some people live on their urine for 40, 50, 60 days alone. What would that mean to your scarcity mindset if you knew that you could live on your urine if you had nothing else for 60 days?
You need a jar.
Yes, you.
Very hard.
Well, that's why you start collecting it now, brother. But you can live on it for 60 days, right? I mean, people have done that when they've been on like lifeboats and stuff out in the ocean. So, but what does that do because like, there were studies done with children from, I believe, the Second World War that were, found in concentration camps that would not go to sleep at night unless they were given a thing of bread to hold for the next day. And once they were given that bread to hold for the next day, they know they'd be fed the next day. Where's the comfort in us knowing that we can actually go to bed for at least 60 days without food for the next day? How would that affect our scarcity mindset? How would that affect our lives going forward, right? Not only that we have nourishment, but we have the best medicine that we need for whatever ailment that we have. It's amazing, right? So let's talk a little bit about the summary and takeaways. So to overcome scarcity mentality mindset, I don't put forth facts. I'm just putting forth what I would call premises, right? These are the premises that I'm putting forth. I mean, I'm not going to say that we have to do this. These are just kind of from what I've presented today and what we've talked about and discussed. These are the takeaways, right? To overcome scarcity mindset, we may need to realize how abundant the universe is and begin to learn techniques, habits, and lifestyles to accept an abundance mindset. Number 2, we may need to recognize mind control within the global man-made reset and not participate in concept of 2-minute hates to defer our attention from cause to effect. Number 3, we may need to comprehend the great transmutation technology called the body of man and begin to develop its capabilities respecting its sovereignty as the temple. Number 4, we may need to realize that we are each divine manifestors of our unique 3D reality, and everything we experience is due to our state of consciousness. And number 5, we may need to develop an individualized concept of what our purpose in life may be, and what does I am that I am mean to each individual. So again, I'm just putting them out as, concepts, not saying that we need to do this or that we have to do this, but each individual needs to determine for himself which is beneficial for him and for the life he wishes and what he wishes or she wishes to transmute to provide that life that they're looking for and the happiness they wish to perceive and share. Any comments before we have our closing statements by Vortex writer?
Well, for me, and I'm not seeing this here. So let's say I think of something I need. One day I needed a step stool to look out my window. But, I'm just saying that out loud. And literally, if either the day after or a couple of days later, I'm just walking on to my usual street to go food shopping. And sure enough, the step is right there, on the sidewalk, because people are, this the garbage day, whatever. There's a whole community, it's like, you can walk on any street, things just show up. So I'm just saying, so that was one example. Okay. So it's kind of like this. If you really need something and you're not really asking how it's going to come, it comes. And I've seen it time and time again. And, in small ways. So there's that too. And then if you think in the Bible, when all the people were in the mountains with the Christ when he was speaking, and they only had 2 fishes or whatever, and he was able to say the whatever, and then it multiplied. So there's another level of when we can reach that intuition thing, or the universe is going to deliver. An abundance thing that we would like to be at. There's the part about getting rid of that scarcity or being in that mode. It's also the way you were brought up. I, in my life at home, when we were brought up, I don't know, how would I say it? My dad never worried where, I'm not saying he never worried, like he did what he was supposed to do, but he believed that it will come, like when you need it, something will come to help you, or, you know what I mean? You do what you can, and then, a person, his sister would come with the money. You know what I mean? It's, I don't know. We're meant to share things. So if we can't manufacture it, okay, the supply chain, you just have to ask. I need, I think I need a mixer, and it will appear on somebody's porch, or in the condo, in the recycling room, in my case.
Anybody else?
Well, I have a less inspiring observation. You mentioned there's testosterone in the male urine and estrogen in the female urine. Yes. And so what if a male drinks the female's urine? Vice versa, could this be a boon to the transgender community?
It may. It's not recommended because of the hormone imbalances in both, that it could cause health problems. I mean, Amanda even talks about that that men can share urine if men are deathly ill and cannot produce their own urine, like they've gotten to a point in their health where they can't do that another man can donate his urine to another man and he still can see benefit and recover. But it is not recommended because of the hormone imbalances between men and women, unless they may want to be in a transgender state. I don't know if it would actually enhance or provide the same benefit they're looking for, but it does have a difference in effect.
Now, here's another observation. You mentioned that they're collecting all this stuff and giving it to us in pharmaceuticals. And is perhaps that one of the reasons why genders are being confused, because we're consuming all this crap?
Well, it could be, but there's also a lot of hormones in the food we eat already, especially within the meats. There's a lot of estrogen in the soy products that we have from GMOs, that if you're not eating organic soy, you're eating a lot of estrogen. So a lot of the men who are eating soy are experiencing estrogen. Also, the idea of when you smoke cannabis, it can cause a lot of estrogen and estrogen production. That's why you see what they would call men boobs or whatever, but a feminization for some people who smoke a lot of cannabis.
But they really smoke a lot. I know people smoke a ton. They don't have any tits.
Yeah. Again, it depends a lot on their current metabolism and so on, but they are finding that has been.
It's certain strains too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry I diverted this to this inspiring aspects, but I was just curious about that.
Yeah. Okay, anything else, or can we wrap up now? Okay, I have brought out my orgone intention emitter from Mitch, the orgone donor, which will put forth the intention set forth by this group. And Vortex Rider is going to do a violet flame, I believe, talk here. So let's, the floor is open.
So on our theme of transmutation, I've learned a powerful affirmation from Patricia Cota Robles, in which we place our intention for perfection into the purifying violet flame, which of course was bestowed to us by Saint Germain. And the declaration goes like this. I am, my beloved I am presence, and I am one with the I am presence of all humanity. I am invoking the full power of the fifth dimensional solar violet flame to transmute all cause, core, effect, and memory of any thought, feeling, action, word, or belief expressed by myself, humanity, or any other entity in any time or dimension, both known and unknown, that is anything less than the infinite perfection of God's divine love.
Great. Oh,
Kind of covers it all, huh?
yes. So thank you very much for that. And I think it was wonderful, and it was in keeping with what we were talking today about with transmutation and the power that within of the I am presence. So with that, we will now stop the recording. Again, this is Will Harold, the Energy Hunter with Akashic Intelligence, the original AI, coming to you from the Rogue River with the Secret of Light group. Thank you all for attending, and thank you for joining. Please like and subscribe for those that are watching, and we will continue to hopefully provide meaningful content that will aid us in this upcoming transmutation of our current experience.